Guys, do not shoot in CINE AI in low light. Here I have two shots from the Sony FX30 in S-Log3. One is shot on the native ISO of 2500 and the other one is at 12800 ISO. So could you guess which one is which? Okay guys, I get it. Let's punch in a little bit. So what do you think? Which one is 2500 and which one is 12800? And here is the answer. Surprised? Let me explain. So here are the ungraded images, and as you can see we have lower exposure with 2500 ISO, the native ISO, which you'll be using in CINE EI mode, the highest value in CINE EI mode, and on the image with 12800 ISO we have a much brighter exposure. So when we zoom in we can definitely tell that there is much more noise on the 2500 ISO image because we had lower exposure, and S-Log3 just loves when you expose to the right, or ETTR. In this case, we have exposed to the right at about 2 stops. Here is a different example, and look at those trees on the bottom. They are very dark on 2500 ISO before grading. And here is the difference in latitude on the stock images. So without any corrections, you can see how much brighter we have exposed the image on the left. And if we zoom in the same picture, you can definitely tell that the image on the right, 2500 ISO or CINE EI mode, is going to have much more noise, and it's a colorful noise. It has some magenta tint to it, whereas the 12800 ISO is looking much more clean and no color cast in it. When we look at the brighter parts of the image, the difference is not that big, but still 12800 is looking cleaner. I have two huge videos about exposing S-Log3 and overall exposing your cameras for the best noise performance and best results in S-Log3 and PP off. You can definitely check those videos out, they will be in the description below, and you'll see that the difference in exposing to a 0 exposure value as opposed to exposing to the right at +2 stops, for instance, is gonna make a huge difference. And the same applies to using the CINE EI versus flexible ISO and using 12800 ISO, for instance, versus 2500 ISO. You saw that the results are pretty much different. And the second video is about using S-Log3 with 10 bits cameras, how to expose it correctly. So definitely go check those two videos out after you watch this one. So let's have a look at one more example without the bright sky, just the parking lot, and now let's color grade those images. And at the first glance they might appear similar, but if we punch in, you'll see a big difference in shadows, and the noise in the shadows on 2500 ISO is like dancing like crazy. We have some blocks of color and it has a magenta tint to it, so 12800 ISO is looking much cleaner in this case. So the exposure is king. One more example with my skin tone. You can definitely tell that there is more noise and also a magenta cast on the right image. But you might ask, isn't it better to shoot in PP off because it's like contrasty and saturated out of the box? And I would say no. Here's the same 12800 ISO on both PP off and also S-Log3 graded, and as you can see guys, it has a huge difference. In all of my videos I say that the S-Log3 is the best low light picture profile if it exposed correctly, and if you know how to use it and if you understand the system behind it. It's the cleanest and the best in terms of colors as well. And I've shot with ISO 100,000 plus for my clients as well, because I knew how to expose S-Log3 and how to eliminate the noise. And speaking of CINE EI, I've been using CINE EI for more than 5 years when I had my Sony FX30, so I do understand how the system works. And CINE EI doesn't do anything except for letting you use only the 800 ISO and 2500 ISO on the FX30. So no magic, no extra dynamic range, no better low light performance, nothing. It's just the same if you were using the flexible ISO and just picking the 800 and 2500 manually. So that is why I suggest you use the flexible ISO setting, and if you have not enough light in your scene, just simply crank up the ISO a little bit. 12800 is going to work just fine. But remember guys that you're shifting the dynamic range a little bit above and below middle gray. So if you raise up the ISO, you'll get a bit more information in the highlights and some less information in the shadows, but we don't need a lot of information in the shadows when we raise up the ISO. We need to suppress the noise in the shadows. That is why we don't need that much information in the shadow area of the dynamic range. That is why don't be afraid to crank up the ISO a little bit. It's better to expose brighter than to use a lower value of the ISO and get a noisier picture because you have underexposed the image. So in the next video, you will find information about using S-Log3 with 10-bit cameras and also a free LUT from Alistair Chapman that allows you to expose to the right, but looking at an image that is much more contrasty and true to life and has -2 EV value. So you expose to the right, brighter image, but you see a better image on the screen. I mean, correctly exposed image, if you will. So go check that video, and I have this slot for free in the description of that video as well. If you have any questions, guys, please let me know down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, smash the like and subscribe buttons. I really appreciate it. Finally, don't use CINE EI for low light shoots. Use flexible ISO and expose correctly. See you in the next videos, guys. Take care. Bye.